Good evening, everyone. I think it's past 6. We'll start. Others can join, considering it's a Saturday evening and I don't want people to wait a lot. So, yes, I think, this is one of the hottest topics that we'll discuss today. Again, thank you so much for taking out time, guys. We will record this and share with everyone who aren't able to join today, considering a weekend. But yeah, the agenda is we'll cover taxation and regulations for the Indian investors when it comes to investing in the US markets directly. So before we begin, just wanted to have some ground rules. If you have any questions, let us please post it in the Q&A section so that we can either answer there itself or we can pick it up during the discussion as well. In case you want to chat, engage, feel free to use the chat window. We'll be more than happy, but please make sure that, we won't be able to cater to the questions in the chat section because our team is, ready to answer in the Q&A only. And yeah, so if you can move to the next slide. Before I introduce the guests today, I just wanted to highlight that at Vested, we have developed an entire tax module that simplifies the tax filing process for Indians. So you can literally forward this as the module, all the statements to your CA, or you can file it yourself as well if you're savvy enough. So in the screenshot that you can see, what I've done is I literally taken a screenshot from my account, and all these files that you see, this is developed, this is produced and provided to all the users, all the clients of ours at the end of every financial year. In fact, our guests today from Galactic Advisors, they have already vetted this too. So without wasting everyone's time, I'll like to introduce you to the team, Galactic team, Manan Mehta and Kamlesh Barot. So these are very, very skilled and talented guys in their own field. So I see a lot of posts and an engagement on social media as well. That's how we got connected. And as I mentioned, right, they have vetted the entire document. They have given their opinion, and I think you are in safe hands for today. So guys, over to you without wasting everyone's time.
Thanks, Bharat. Hi, everyone. I see a lot of familiar names in the attendees box. So hello to everyone. Obviously, I'm Manan. My social media links are up there, always available. Our DMs are open. Kamlesh will be our other panelist for today. So without wasting too much time on who we are, we want to tell you how tax works. Let's not waste too much time on who Galactic is. We like to show, not tell. So let's just get into it. So we've got some very fun stuff for you today. Capital gains implications is something I think a lot of people seem to be having nightmares about. Don't worry, it's fairly straightforward. We'll walk you through everything. You don't have to worry about it. Dividend, interest, foreign tax credit, all of that will be in this session. Filing idea, like Bharat already said, Vested is preparing all of these schedules for you. So we'll walk you through Schedule FA, Schedule FSI, Schedule TR, Form 67. I know a lot of you might not know what any of these schedules mean. Don't worry, we have got you covered. We will do each schedule separately in as much detail as possible, so you don't have to worry about it as much. And obviously, we have caselets for each of these. We've prepared small examples so you can understand better. So without further ado, and like Bharat said, we'll have a Q&A session at the end. We're trying to wrap it up as quickly as possible from our end. So there's as many questions as you want, you can shoot at us at the end. So let's just get started with the capital gains implications. So first things first is obviously, what is capital gains? Capital gains is simply the tax that you have to pay when you sell a stock. Now, if you have profit, you're going to have capital gains. If it's a loss, it's going to be a capital loss. Something to remember is you need to report both of these. So dono report karna padega. You don't think that, okay, I made a loss, so I don't need to report it. You actually have an advantage if you've reported your loss because you can set it off against your future gains. So just keep that in mind. From a US perspective, what we need to know is there'll be no capital gains tax. So if you're hesitating in investing in US stocks, thinking US mein reporting karna padega, US I'll have to file a return, I'll have to pay tax in the US, none of that applies. If you're a non-resident alien as per US tax laws, you have no capital gains tax in the US. That is why it does not matter what are US rules for short term, what are US rules for long term. None of that matters. US is very simple. You are non-resident alien. हमको कुछ पड़ी नहीं है. You can pay tax only in your domestic country. In this case, in India. So let's consider how it works from an Indian perspective. In India, first thing you need to know is how to classify an asset as a short-term or long-term capital asset. Now, there's a lot of tax mumbo jumbo here. There's a lot of sections to read. Don't worry, we won't make you read any of this. The next slide is basically all you need to know. 24 months, 36 months. Those are the two periods you need to remember. For shares, 24 months. If it is held for more than 24 months, it is a long-term capital asset. Less than 24 months, मतलब short-term capital asset. Why it is important to know that is because the tax rate will depend on this. So I'll come to what are the tax rates, but let's just deal with ETFs also. For ETF, it's slightly different. For ETFs, you have to consider a holding period of 36 months for long term, less than 36 months for short term. Just remember, this is slightly different from अपना Indian tax laws for Indian equity. Indian equity के लिए we consider 12 months, but don't remember that for US purposes. US purposes के लिए 24 months and 36 months. So the next slide is basically a cheat sheet where we've covered everything from a Indian taxation perspective, everything in one slide, and we will give you these slides at the end. So you don't need to keep coming back to the webinar. You can just refer to this one slide. This will tell you everything from capital gains perspective. For US shares, if it's held for more than 24 months, it's long-term capital gains. The tax will be 20% plus with indexation. Now, I know lots of you might not know what indexation is. We'll do it in the examples, so there's no need to worry. It's a straightforward. Basically, you're just getting a bump up in your purchase cost there. So we'll explain it, not an issue. Less than 24 months is short-term capital gains. That is taxed at slab rates. ETFs, again, tax rates remain similar. Only thing that is changing is the 36 months. For shares, it was 24 months. For ETFs, it is 36 months. That is all. This cheat sheet is your everything from a capital gains perspective. Vested also prepares these reports where they'll give you all of the capital gains calculated in one sheet. So you can forward that to your CA, and your CA can vet it, have a look at it. We've as such worked with Vested, so we know that those sheets are almost precise. It has like 99% accuracy, maybe even 100% accuracy. So that's all. Forward it to your CA, they will work it out. Let's take a couple of examples. Let's start with short-term capital gains. We have, say, Mr. Mickey, who is investing in Disney stock on 29th May at a price of about USD 117. On 31st December, he decides to sell it because stock price shot up. He was like, "Okay, $150 ho gaya. Now I want to get out." So he's made significant gains first, though, in the, say, 6-month period. Like you can see, it's a 6-month period, so it's less than 24 months. If it's less than 24 months for shares, it is a short-term capital asset. So let's try to calculate how short-term capital gains is calculated. It's very straightforward. You take your sale price, $150. You take your purchase price, $117. Your short-term capital gains is just a subtraction. Sale minus purchase, 32.7 is your short-term capital gains. Now, one thing you'll notice here is this is still in dollar terms. But when you file anything in your ITR, it has to be in rupee terms. There's no column to enter dollar numbers, etc. in the ITR. So we'll convert this into an ITR, and there's a peculiar rule of how to do it. So here you go. If the stock was sold on 31st December, basically you look at the last date of the month preceding to the month of sale. So in this case, if it was sold on 31st December, you look at 30th November 2020. If it was sold on, say, 1st November, you look at 31st October. So basically you go 1 month before the last date of that month. So for the sake of our example, let's assume that the RBI reference rate was 30th November was USD 1 equals to INR 80. I know it was not, but let's just assume for the sake of our example that it was. All you do is you multiply your short-term capital gains, 32.7 into 80, and you arrive at a short-term capital gains of 2616. Very straightforward there, nothing to worry about. There is a couple of things you need to keep in mind here though. First thing is, for all practical purposes, you can use the RBI reference rate. If you read the rules precisely, it actually mentions the SBI TT buying rate as well. And I know a lot of you might have this question in the future. So let me put your doubts to rest. For practical purposes, you can use the RBI reference rate. If you want to be, say, 200% sure, you might want to use the SBI TT rate, but honestly, it makes no difference. And I think Vested also uses the RBI reference rate. So at a practical level, we've seen income tax department doesn't really worry about it. You are free to use the RBI reference rate as well. Another thing to note is there is an alternate view to this as well, which says you convert the sale price and you convert the purchase price separately on 2 different dates. And then you calculate the capital gains. So in that case, maybe your capital gains might be higher, it might be lower, but that is something that is up for debate. So practically, if you read the rules and you read the regulations, and this is based on our stand, as well as what a lot of other CAs are doing, we tend to do it this way, the way we've shown it in our example. And it's perfectly okay to be doing it this way. So why not do it this way? Because most likely dollar will appreciate against rupee most times. So this way you will end up paying lesser capital gains tax. We've calculated the short-term capital gains. We've come to 2616. Remember that this will be taxed at a slab rate. So you might be at the 5% slab rate, you might be at a 10% slab rate, you might be at a 20% slab rate, or you might be at the higher slab, you might be at a 30% slab rate. Whatever is your slab rate, the capital gains will be taxed at that rate only. Let's take one more example. This time we'll do long-term capital gains. So thoda more interesting it will get because we have indexation also here. So we have Mr. Sundar, who's investing in Google stock at a price of USD 840 approximately in 2017. Then Google shoots up like Google always does. It's gone up to 1400 USD on 4th May 2020. In this case, how do we calculate the capital gains? First thing, like we always do, figure out what is the holding period. You'll see that it is nearly 3 years, more than 3 years. Now, since it is more than 24 months, what we'll do is we'll classify this as a long-term capital asset. Since it's a long-term capital asset, let's calculate the gains accordingly. So here's the gains. You take $1,400, which is your sale price. Your purchase price is $840, but you'll see something different here. There's something called index cost of acquisition. So what has happened here is you multiplied your 840.18 by 301, which is your cost inflation index for 2017-18, and you divided it by 272, which is your cost inflation index for 17-18. I think I messed up anyway, so let me just clarify again. You take 840.18, you multiply by 301, which is your cost inflation index for 2020-21, and you divide it by the cost inflation index for 17-18. Basically, what has happened is you have increased your purchase cost. The government is saying, okay, we understand you've held this asset for a long term. So we'll give you a slight increase in your purchase price to compensate whatever inflation there is in India. Now, you might ask me, I am applying Indian cost inflation index to a US asset. How does that make sense? It doesn't, but income tax rules allow you to do it. So why not? Go ahead, index your cost of acquisition, pay a lower capital gains tax. You have arrived at a capital gains of 470.2. Again, you will notice that was in USD terms. So let's convert it into INR this time. For the sake of our example, let's assume on 30th April, it was USD1 is 75.3 INR. Again, notice one thing, the shares were sold on 4th May. You take the last date of the month preceding the month of sale. So in this case, 30th April, because the last day of the month preceding the month was April and last date is 30th April. So you multiply that 470.2 into 75.3, you came to a long-term capital gains of 38,200. This will be taxed at 20%. Flat 20%, there is no option of I do 10% or 20% without indexation. None of that jazz. It's very simple. Flat 20%. If there is surcharge applicable in your case, then obviously there might be surcharge also. And cess of 4% applies to everyone. So that's a blanket 4%. So effectively, your tax comes to about 20.8%, assuming you don't have surcharge. That's the example. Again, if you have any questions on this, just feel free to keep shooting in the Q&A box. Let's take a few points you need to remember from a capital gains perspective. First thing is, remember, you have to follow the first in, first out method. Now, there is a little bit of a practical debate here, because if you read the act specifically, it doesn't really say that you need to follow FIFO for a US asset. But on a conservative basis, and it's a view a lot of us CAs are taking, you should ideally be following first in, first out. It's very difficult to justify any other method. Again, if you want to take a slightly more aggressive view, you could work with your tax advisor on it. There's nothing wrong with it, but just be prepared to defend your position. So there have been times when we have discussed it with the client and said, okay, you're saving significant in taxes. Let's take a slightly more aggressive view. But for all practical purposes, for all people who are conservative, I would recommend follow the first in, first out method. And that's how Vestige reports are also prepared. They follow the first in, first out method. Now, first in, first out is basically if you purchased 5 shares of Google, then you purchased 10 shares of Google, and you decided to sell just 1 share. What happens is it is sold from the first 5 shares, not the second lot of 10 shares. That is basically how first in, first out works. Another point to remember is brokerage charges, remittance charges. All of these can be taken as a deduction. I understand Vestige doesn't charge you brokerage anyway, but in case you have any brokerage or working with someone else, then you can take a deduction for that. Remittance charges is something where it is a little bit interesting because you have to establish a one-to-one correlation between your sale and your expense. That is usually difficult to do, but if you have been able to maintain a one-to-one correlation, that can definitely be done. Something to remember is Vestige report does not consider this because it is very difficult to maintain a one-to-one correlation. And our advice to Vestige has also been to be on a conservative basis. So most of what you will find in Vestige report is as conservative as possible, purely because we don't want you to land in some sort of trouble where the income tax department comes chasing after you, etc., etc. So if you want to take an aggressive stand, again, there's nothing stopping you, but work with your tax advisor on that. Don't take a call on your own, or if you're obviously savvy enough to do it yourself, you understand the implications, go ahead and do it. There's nothing to stop you from doing it. And like we discussed, for long-term capital gains, you will get indexation. So again, I understand a lot of questions come up in terms of a US asset, Indian cost inflation index, but as long as the rule is in play, go ahead and use it. The act is very clear. There's no exceptions to that rule. So you're free to do it. And I would recommend doing it. That's it from a capital gains perspective. Again, we'll keep answering your questions. And if there's any specific questions, we'll take it up in the Q&A section, whatever are the more interesting questions. I see a lot of questions have started coming up and they've also started answering a few. So anyway, let's try to take as many questions as possible in the Q&A. And in the meantime, let's go on to interest and dividend.
So don't worry, Manan, I'll help moderate that section as well.
Perfect, Bharat.
So we're answering a few of those which we can. Otherwise, the more important ones, which would be benefiting everyone, we'll pick it up in the Q&A.
Perfect. So let's do that then. So Kamlesh can take over from me from a dividend and interest perspective. Kamlesh, the stage is all yours.
Sure. Thank you, Manan. Very good evening to everyone who's joined us. So the next part, what we have here is dividend and interest. So for the ones who've joined in the middle of session, I'll just deconstruct the entire session to you. The first part was the capital gains, and Manan was dealing with that. The second part is dividend and interest. Further, we have the ITR schedules for you, wherein you will understand how these are reported without wasting much of on the time on this structure of the presentation. I'll straightly tell you about why dividend and interest becomes a crucial point. It has contrast in terms of the capital gains also. So let's just see how the dividend and interest is treated differently from the capital gains. So what we have here is that dividend and interest, both of them are taxable in the US since they are source based. So on the contrary to the capital gains, dividend and interest would become taxable in the US. Since most of us would be non-resident Indian, non-residents for the US, there would be a withholding tax as per the DTAA signed between India and the US. So the withholding rate for dividend would be 25%, and for the interest, it would be 15%. Needless to say, you can always avail the foreign tax credit against the taxes which have been withheld in the United States. Moving on, the other point that needs to be considered is that foreign tax credit usually don't have a one-to-one relationship to it. Let's just simplify by saying it that if मैंने 25% tax US में दिया है, it wouldn't be that 25% का exact credit मिलेगा. There is a working to it. So we've put few examples also as to how the credit is calculated and how do you deal with it. So you just take one example. Mr. Binny has invested in 100 shares of Walmart. and he's received dividend of 10 per dollar, and this he's received on 15th of May. As Man already pointed out that you have to, the date becomes crucial when we convert the dollar amounts to the INR amounts. That is why. So moving forward, we see that he's earned $1,000 of dividend income, and the withholding tax on that is $250. His net receipts are $750. Fairly straightforward. The withholding tax would be done by a broker itself. So that's there. The next part is how we convert it into INR terms so that we can report it in our ITRs. So the conversion of currency is same as capital gains. So the rule says that it has to be converted on the last date of the month immediately preceding the month in which the dividend is declared, distributed, paid by the company. A lot of questions would arise on the declared and distributed part, but needless to say, we always recommend a conservative basis of approach, and which is first, we tend to follow that. So in this case, since the dividend was received on 15th of May, the relevant date for that would be 30th of April. So the RBI reference rate on that date is, let's assume for 1 USD it was 73 rupees. So the dividend income gets converted to 73,000 rupees. The withholding tax is also converted at 18,250. And the rule which deals with the withholding tax for the geeks who've attended us and who are curious as to where is it written. So you can always refer to Rule 125. It entirely deals with the foreign tax credit situation. So the net receipts are again 54,750. A word of caution that we need to keep the net receipts amount in mind and the dividend income. We'll understand why that becomes important at a later stage. So after we've converted it, now where does the dividend income fall? So dividend and the interest income, both of them would be considered under income from other sources, and it would be taxed at the slab rates. The slab rates could range from either it could be the new regime slab rates or the old regime slab rates. Right. The next portion is the foreign tax credit on the withholding taxes that you've already paid in the US. So what we have to consider here is the effective tax rate. So let's say the effective tax rate for Mr. Bini was 28%, and we'll see how it needs to be dealt with. So the dividend income was 73,000. The withholding tax, as we already calculated, was 18 to 50. Taxes in India would be 28% on the dividend income. That comes out to 20,440. And so the foreign tax credit is lower of both the withholding tax or the foreign tax credit. So the tax is payable in India for the dividend income is 2190. Similarly, in case if we would have had an interest income of similar range, only the withholding tax rate would change to 15%. The rest of the calculation remains the same. So let's just understand as to what would happen in case the effective tax rate was lower than the withholding tax rate. Because since the new regime has come in, there might be a chance that a lot of us would fall below the 25% limit also. So here is an example wherein the scenario changes, that withholding taxes were same 18 to 50, and taxes in India at 20% was 14,600. Since Mr. Bini's effective tax rate has come out to at 20%, the foreign tax credit as such, he wouldn't be able to avail any foreign tax credit, and the taxes payable in India would be zero. But for the ones who are curious, who would want to know that since my effective tax rate is at 20%, and why should I not get the refund on that 5%? So it is something which is governed by the India US DTAA. India will not issue you a refund for the additional 5% that you paid in the US. That the one which is that you've already paid, that is gone. But what you could do is you don't pay taxes twice in India and the US. So that is the brighter side towards it. So taxes payable in India would be zero. Next up, we summarized the points for dividend and interest, what needs to be considered, wherein while you are reporting your income in the ITR. So you have to report it on a gross basis rather than the net basis. What do I mean by gross basis and net basis? That you've received the company has given you $1,000 of worth of dividend, and the withholding on that was $250. Right. What people tend to do is that they report 750 as their income and not the 1,000. For the ones who are doing their ITR by themselves, this is a word of caution that they have to do, like they have to keep that in mind. Needless to say, if your advisor wouldn't make such a mistake in terms of that the dividend income, he would always consider it as $1,000. But for the rest of us who file their ITRs on their own, we need to consider that the dividend income should be $1,000. The second is the scenario of what happens if the tax rate is lower than the withholding tax rate. Again, you wouldn't be issued any refund. So this is something that most of us tend to do, is that they try to go on to claim a refund, or they file it in their schedules, and what the error throws up in their ITRs, right? So, and they are pretty clueless as to why this is happening. So this is something that needs to be considered. The other portion is the advance tax payments on your dividend and interest income. So since TDS is not being deducted on such incomes, and the advance tax liability might arise since your taxes payable would be more than 10,000 for the month it increases on the 10,000 basis, you would want to avoid the interest for not paying your advance tax on time, right? So this is something that you need to consider, that every quarter basis you have to make your advance tax payments, and so as to you might avoid interest after the financial period has also been crossed. So after understanding what are the implications in terms of capital gains and the dividend and interest, there is something that people might want to consider, is that since there is no capital gains in the US, right, and there is no withholding there, what you would want to do is you would want to invest more in growth stocks like Amazon, and say like you would want to avoid Walmart in case if you're just investing it for the sake of for not missing the action as to you want to invest overseas. A word of disclaimer here is that this is not purely a financial advice. Like, your taxes don't determine as to what your investment decisions should be. But for someone who are risk averse, or who want to be very compliance light, this is something that they can follow. So now we've understood how the capital gains are calculated and how the dividend and interest is calculated. Let's move on to the other part of the presentation, which is the ITR schedules, as to how these things are reported in the ITR schedules and what needs to be filled where. Manan would be taking forward from this. So Manan, go on.
Sure. Thanks, Kamlesh. I just saw someone in the chat box say, I'll buy AT&T after watching this. I like suffering. So, okay, very interesting take there. All right. Let's go to the ITR schedules. A lot of people seem to be having a lot of issues with the extra schedules they need to be filling. It's not too much of an issue, to be honest. It's something we do on a daily basis, and your CA should be able to handle it. So don't let tax be the reason or reporting be a reason that you miss out on investing in, say, US stocks, because diversification is important. It's important to invest directly. Vested has done a lot of videos on why you might want to do it directly instead of doing it through, say, local mutual funds. So without wasting too much time, let's get into what the schedules are and how you're supposed to do reporting for that. So these are the 4 schedules or forms which you need to fill. Next time someone tells you about Schedule FA, you know it means foreign asset. All you have to do is report all of your foreign assets here, whether it is your RSUs, your foreign bank accounts, or obviously, if you have an account with Vested, all of your stocks, ETFs, etc., you need to report all of those in the Schedule FA. Schedule FSI, TR, and Form 67, these 3 tend to go together. They have very similar reporting requirements, and why there are 3 forms or 3 schedules, that is beyond us, but unfortunately they're there. So FSI is your foreign sourced income. So if you have capital gains, you have dividend, you have interest, any foreign sourced income, all of that goes in your Schedule FSI. Tax relief is to claim foreign tax credit, like Kamlesh was explaining in the dividend and interest examples. If you want to take foreign tax credit for your US dividend or interest, you need to fill up the scheduled TR, and you also need to fill up a Form 67. All of this, the first 3, FA schedule, FSI, and TR, all of these are part of your, say, ITR 2, ITR 3, whichever you're filing. Form 67 is a separate form you need to file online. So Vested gives you all of these 4 reports ready. You just need to pick up the numbers and make sure you're plugging in it properly. Again, word of caution, just be sure that you're doing it right. And if you're taking a different stand from what Vested is giving you, make sure you're discussing it with your advisor, because we've seen a little bit income tax department looking at foreign assets a little more closely. So just be sure of what you're doing. As long as you can back it up, there's no reason for you to not be able to do anything. So let's get into schedule foreign asset and how that reporting works. Now there's again a lot of mumbo jumbo in the instructions to ITI 2 and ITI 3. And we've seen a lot of debate actually online also within forums everywhere on where you should report your foreign assets. There's a table A1 which deals with depository accounts. There's a table A2 which deals with custodian accounts. There's also a table A3 which we'll get to, which we think is the best place to report your foreign assets in terms of if there are shares or ETFs. And we've also seen people report it under table B, which is financial interest in any entity outside India, and table D, which is any other capital asset. Now, table D honestly doesn't make any sense to me. Table D is something which is a cop-out. If someone tells you to report it under table D, it's probably because they're trying to reduce their workload. It doesn't make sense to be reporting it under other capital assets. The reason we say it should go under table A3 is because there's a general concept in law which says specific overrules general. Now, table A3 is the most specific out of all of these options that you're seeing here. Foreign equity and debt interest, because you are investing in equity, which is equity shares or equity ETFs, it makes sense to put it under foreign equity and debt. Let's look at how table A3 works and what are the columns that you need to fill up in table A3. Kamlesh, if you can go to next. Yeah, perfect. So this table is basically what Vested will give you in the report. It looks exactly like this. They will give it to you in an Excel file. Let's go through each column in the table A3 and see what you need to fill up there. Before we get to that, we need to remember one thing. Schedule FA will be filled on a calendar year basis. Why is that? Is because the income tax instructions have something really interesting. It says you follow the reporting period of the country in which the asset is held. So in the current case, since your asset is in the US, you follow the calendar because US follows the calendar. If your asset was hypothetically in the UK, you would have continued following the Indian financial year because UK follows a similar financial year. Income tax says that is to make your life easier so that you do same reporting in US and in India, but all it does for individual investors is make your life more difficult. Good thing, again, like we said multiple times here, is Vested prepares all of this for you. Just be sure to plug it in properly and make sure you vet it or you have a CA vet the numbers, because like we said, 99% accuracy, but there might be that 1% edge case. So you don't need to worry about those cases. Your CA will handle it. Let's just go through, I think, each of the columns in the FA schedule, which is table A3 of the FA schedule. Country name and code is obviously United States of America. Name of entity will be the company or the ETF that you're investing in, say Alphabet, or if it's a NASDAQ ETF or it's a Vanguard ETF, you just put in the name of which ETF it is. Address of the entity, obviously the entity that you're investing in will have some address. In the current case, we said it's Google, so it's Mountain View. Zip code, if it has a zip code, nothing like it. Otherwise, you can enter 6 times 9. And that is an acceptable thing under the Indian Income Tax Act. Income tax rules basically, which says if you don't have a zip code, just put 6 times 9. That is perfectly okay. The nature of entity, if it is a company, it's company. If it's an ETF, it's ETF. Date of acquiring interest. Now, this is where it gets interesting. You might have acquired shares of Alphabet on multiple days. So you first purchased it on 1st April. You then purchased it on 2nd April, 3rd April. Then you purchase it in May, whatever. Now, this is a stand we've taken, and this is what most CAs are taking, is that you put in the first date of acquisition. So if your first date of acquisition of Google stock was 1st April, you put that date in. And initial value of investment will also be the value as on that date. So in the current example, we've assumed you put in 1 lakh rupees on the first date. Now, I understand that will not be in rupee terms, that will be in dollar terms. So again, you have to use the same method of conversion, which is you convert it using the SBI TT rate or use the RBI reference rate. again, for all practical purposes, RBI reference rate is good enough. For US dollars, you're free to use the RBI reference rate. Peak value is a combination of multiple factors. Peak value is a multiplication of the number of shares you're holding, the value of the share, and the RBI reference or the SBI DT buying rate. You do a full complex calculation depending on what date you had, how many shares, and you multiply those, you arrive at which day you had the highest value. In the current case, we assume, okay, at a certain point of time, you had shares of 1,50,000. So we just put that number in the table. Closing value, again, like I told you, it is following a calendar year basis. If you follow a calendar year, your closing date is 31st December. So closing value is the value of your shares as on 31st December. In the current case, since we're doing ITR for FY 2021, your calendar is calendar 2020. So closing value will be as on 31st December 2020. The last two columns is where people seem to get a little bit confused. It's very straightforward. You don't have to break your head too much over it. Total gross amount paid or credited in terms of companies or ETFs is just dividend. If you have received any dividend during the year, you put it in there. Google obviously doesn't pay you any dividend, which is why we put 0. Gross proceeds from sale or redemption, if you've sold any stock during the year, you put the INR value of that after conversion using the SBI TT rate, using the RBI reference rate. Whatever is the gross proceeds you've received, you put it in the last column. That's all. That is it. That is Schedule FA. There's nothing else. Sorry, Kamlesh, you can just go back to the previous slide. One last thing to cover here is, remember, if your income crosses 50 lakh, you need to fill Schedule FA as well as Schedule AL. AL is an asset liability schedule, which applies if you have a certain amount of income, which is above 50 lakh rupees. So remember that in the AL schedule also, you need to report the assets that you've already reported in the FA schedule. Doesn't mean that I FA schedule mein keh diya, now I don't need to do it in AL. That is not the case. AL schedule maybe report karo, do the same thing, add the values to your FA schedule. Now there you might have a little bit of a mismatch here where AL schedule is following 31st March, while FA schedule is following 31st December. Unfortunately, there is no concrete regulation or rule which defines this. So you will have to work with your CA in terms of how you want to do that reporting. You want to be very precise about it, because AL schedule and FA schedule are both things which the income tax department just tends to look at in a little more detail. Again, if your income is crossing 50 lakh, just make sure AL schedule is again a very straightforward schedule. It just asks you to report whatever share values you have, insurance values, properties, etc. that you need to fill up. But let's not deviate too much from our topic today. So let's just get into the next schedule, which is Schedule FSI. Okay, so before we do that, let's do an example with Schedule FA. I forgot we had an example for you. So Mr. G is G for Galactic, is investing in the US market with Vested, obviously. And he starts investing in April 2020. We have investments in XYZ Inc. on 18th April, 100 shares of say $15,000. And he sells off some units, say half of the units he sells off for a value of $9,000. Balance, he also decides to purchase ABC ETF, which is probably tracking some sort of index. Purchases 30 units, $9,000, sells off majority of it, 25 units, for a total value of $8,125. He also receives $1 in dividend from the ETF. One thing is, obviously ETFs in the US always pay you dividend irrespective of what you do. So there's no growth option like we have in India in terms of ETFs. You will always get some small amount of dividend distribution there. So let's see how that is reported in the Schedule FA. This report is what Vested will give you. Vested will do all of the backend magic, all of the backend calculation. Or if you're not working with Vested, then your CA will do all of the backend magic, all of the backend working. Basically, like we discussed, country name is United States, name of entity is XYZ Inc. and ABC ETF. Address of the entity, zip code, nature of entity is very straightforward. Nature of entity, one thing you see is we've mentioned company under ETF. That is wrong. You should be putting ETF there. Initial value, peak value, closing value, all of this calculation will be done. Investor will give you all of this, or the CA will give you this. Total gross amount paid or credited is your dividend amount, and total gross proceeds, like we said, he sold 50% of the stock. So that went in the sales schedule. Let's move on to the FSI and TR. I think we have a few questions also, so let's just quickly run through these. FSI and TR again have a little bit of idea mumbo jumbo. But let's just get to how it works and what is how it actually looks. You don't need to worry about any of this. This is just mumbo jumbo that is there in the rules. If we can go to the next slide. Yeah. So FSI has 3-4 things basically you need to report. If you have any foreign salary, foreign house property, foreign capital gains, and foreign other sources income. Since we're focusing on US investments right now, let's focus on capital gains and other sources for dividend and interest. You just report whatever is your total income outside India, what is the tax paid outside India, what is the tax payable as per Indian income tax provisions. Now, under Indian income tax provisions, remember that you need to calculate it based on your effective tax rate. Vested obviously doesn't know what is your effective tax rate. You might be in the 10% slab, 20% slab, whatever slab. So that is one thing you need to be careful about, and just make sure you're calculating your effective tax properly. Tax relief will be based on whichever is lower, the tax paid in India or outside India, like Kamlesh already explained in that example. The articles of the DTAA, you would probably have your dividend article and your foreign tax credit article, which is Article 10 for dividend and Article 25 for foreign tax credit. One, I think FAQ, which we keep getting is, what do I report under my taxpayer identification number? I don't have a US social security number. If you don't have a social security number, you put in your passport number. That's it. If you have a social security number, you put that in. Just as simple as that. So let's go into Schedule TR. Schedule TR is just an extension of Schedule FSI. It is pre-filled from most of the details, at least till last year, used to come pre-filled from Schedule FSI. So again, you will see it's exactly the same information that we already put in the previous schedule. There is nothing extra here. It's just one additional reporting. Why they make you do it, don't ask us. But it's there, you have to do it. So unfortunately, no way around it. Last thing is obviously Form 67. So let's look at Form 67. Form 67 is again the same thing as Schedule FSI. You will see that you have the exact same columns also. Just one thing additional you need to do with your Form 67 is you will have to give information to the income tax department on the tax deducted. Say you're getting a 1052S or you're getting a 1099 or whatever is your proof of tax deduction outside India, you need to submit that also. And there's an attach button on the income tax portal. You just need to submit that additionally. Now, obviously the portal right now is a nightmare. It might not work, but eventually that is what will happen. That is what we've done year after year. So that's it. That's the schedule you need to look at. Without further ado, let's get to the questions. I think a lot of people have a lot of questions. So let's just get started with that. Bharat, you can ask
Yes. Thank you so much for this detailed session, Manan and Kamlesh. I'm sure most of us attending this, and also the ones who would be viewing this in the future, this would help them resolve all these tax queries, and then they won't be afraid of this as a concept, right? Because I've seen many of them thinking that tax is the blocker, the regulations, the laws as the blocker, and they don't feel very comfortable in starting or diversifying in the US markets or diversifying outside India as well. So thank you so much again. I think we've answered many of those already, but a couple of things I think I've noted and I've kept it, and starred it actually. So the first one is, does vested capital gains calculation consider just INR depreciation alone without an increase in the underlying share price from purchase to sale is not taxable? So basically, I'll just kind of simplify this. Do we consider tax on INR depreciation, Manan?
So you would technically be considering it, because like we discussed in the example, what we're doing is we're first calculating the capital gains and then we're paying tax on it. So you could say that you're paying tax on the depreciation, but in fact, if you're looking at it properly, you're basically not actually having any additional tax. You're doing it as on whatever is the INR value as on the date of sale.
Correct.
So say you purchased the share when it was INR was 70 rupees and it was $100. So you paid 7,000 rupees. Compare that to you sold it for $200 and the price was, say, your INR rate was 75. So you're technically not paying tax on the difference. You're only paying tax on the 75 wala value.
Got it. Yes. So to summarize, guys, we don't need, so as Manan always said, right, that the laws are not black and white currently when it comes to US investing, when it comes to international investing precisely. So there's no need to pay tax on the depreciation itself. But having said that, we consider the latest or the selling date INR exchange. So that more or less captures most of the amount. So in case you still have any further questions, you want to get it explained by using examples, write to us, write to Manan, write to us, and we'll be more than happy. All right, moving on. So this is something, I think that's vested specific. I'll answer it here. One thing that a couple of these guys have asked Manan and Kamlesh, on the ITR form, which form should they use considering they are a salaried or a professional? So I believe it's ITR2. Can you please throw some light? Because there's some confusion on social media as well.
Sure. Okay, so first thing you need to remember is you cannot file ITR1 if you have foreign investments. So that goes out the window. Your option is between ITR2 and ITR3. Now, if you have salaried income, you don't have any income from business, you have to file an ITR2. If you have business income, you have to file ITR3. That's it. That is the only point of distinction you need to know about. There is other minute points, but major point of difference is just this, whether you have any business income or not.
Perfect. So guys, ITR2 for salaried, ITR3 if you have some business income as well. Correct. So simple. Let's say that. One thing I think I can answer this here. Okay. Does vested capital gains calculation consider that dividends that we receive, right? So what investors get is they get dividends as cash directly in their vested account, and if they use that cash to buy shares, so automatically that amount would be considered as the purchase price, even if you don't withdraw. So I think we already do calculate and do consider this as well. So I hope I've answered. I don't have the name. It's asked anonymously. So I'll just mark as answered. All right. One thing, Manan and Kamlesh, how can we show capital loss on the RSUs in ITR? Again, this is not something that comes up very often to us, because RSUs are something that is not very, very friendly, and you cannot invest or you cannot transfer RSUs directly to vested per se. So if you guys have some idea, because there are a bunch of questions on RSUs, so if you can just quickly summarize or give a couple of minutes of background on RSUs and how to deal with it.
Sure. So let me just explain how RSU tax works. First level of taxation happens when you actually, when your RSUs get granted and vested. So once you receive the stock, that is when you have the first layer of taxation. Let's assume this is a listed company. Let's assume you have RSUs of like Google or Microsoft or Amazon, something like that. So first thing is you're supposed to be given 100 shares. What they'll do is they'll sell off 30 approximately. They'll sell those 30 shares and say, okay, that is your tax liability. And that is your perquisite tax. Sorry.
Yeah, no, so sorry. Yeah.
Okay, no worries. So that is your first level of RSU taxation, which is at the time of actual vesting. Now, this is different if you're working with, say, a startup or you're getting unlisted shares, but let's right now focus on listed shares. So they've sold off the initial 30, you've got 70 shares in your account. The second level happens when you actually sell your shares. Now, that might be a gain or that might be a loss, depending on the fair market value on the date when we actually receive the shares. So say you received the 100 shares on a particular date, let's say 1st April. That 100 shares had a fair market value of $100. वो $100 के ऊपर you paid $30 as tax, 70 you took in your account. Now, when you sell it, you're having a RSU price of say $140. 100 minus 140, so 140 minus 100, $40 के ऊपर you will have tax. So essentially, you've paid tax on the full income, but you're not paying double tax. Now, to answer the question from a loss perspective, if you have a loss, it will be between the fair market value and the value on the date of sale. So say you received the stock when the value was $100. and you sell it when the price is $70, that 30 you can take as a capital loss. And that you can set off against other income, other capital gains, or you can set it off in the future also. So that is broadly how capital gains taxation and RSU taxation works for basically listed shares. For unlisted, it's a whole different dynamic, but let's not waste everyone's time with that.
Yeah. So guys, considering RSUs are something which is not applicable for everyone, but we'll try to summarize it. In case you have any further queries, feel free to write to Manan and team.
Right, you already have our email IDs. It will be on the last slide again. Kamlesh, if you can just show that slide.
Sure.
So just feel free to write us any email. DMs are also open on social media. So we're always available. We'll get back to you pretty quickly.
Yes. So another question, I think, on the RBI or FBIL rates. So they have been asking if there is any particular specific case laws or sections that we can refer to when we are using FBI or RBI reference rates.
Okay, so you would want to look at Rule 115 here. Kamlesh might have, if you want to take over and explain that in a little more detail.
Yeah, so Rule 115 particularly says that how the capital gains or the salary income, so it essentially wraps up how the foreign income is converted into that. So for capital gains per se, it is the last date of the month in which the capital gains had occurred. So in our case, for 15th of May, it would be 30th of April. Similarly, if let's say it is some different date of 30th of April, it goes on to 1st of April. And in case if you sold your shares on 1st of April, it goes to the previous financial year also. So you can always refer to Rule 115. There has been a lot of debate. So the Rule 115 hasn't been updated also since a very long time, because you can still see the reference of the FERA Act instead of the FEMA Act. So that is the problem there. But there is no black and white per se as to what we have to use. So RBI reference rate and SBI TD buying rate are close to similar in terms of that, in terms of calculating the gains. So you might not face astronomical amount of changes in terms of your gains or in terms of your sale proceeds. So that is where you are secured in terms of you can use either. In case the SBI TD buying rate is not actively maintained also at the SBI's website, right? So the RBI reference rate is easily and readily available. So you can always do that, like always opt for the RBI reference rate. In case if the SBI TD buying rate is not, and still if you want to go buy the book or be like, I have to do it, so you can download the rate as on that date. In case you miss the bus, you miss the bus.
Yeah, thanks.
I think
one thing to
remember this, we did try a full exercise where we tried to get the SBI TD rate, but it's a nightmare.
Correct.
नहीं होता है वो कुछ भी करो.
It's a little difficult to get those rates, especially the past ones, because आज से तो I think we can still store somewhere, but the past ones are a little difficult to get hands on. But anyways, just one quick thing to add here is that RBI has appointed FBIL to provide these reference rates. So guys, it doesn't mean that FBIL rates for nahi chalenge. That's authorized by RBI. So don't worry. You can again
also, if you actually read the section, the Rule 115, it says the SBI TT buying rate having regard to the reference rate given by RBI from time to time. So they've made a slight reference to it. They didn't flat out just say it. They should have just said or RBI reference rate. But there is a slight reference they've made there, so we're pretty much in the clear as far as that is concerned.
Got it. Yep. Thanks. Another question, I think this is something that we also discussed, Manan. Why 36 months for ETFs and why 24 months for stocks? Is there any specific thing you want to highlight?
Okay, so if for shares, you fall under the unlisted shares category. Now, why are they unlisted shares? Because India says listed shares are NSE, BSE per list hua hai, so they're listed shares. Any other shares are unlisted shares. So if they're listed outside India, they're unlisted shares. So for unlisted shares, they say 2 years holding period. And that's a benefit they've given. They intended it for unlisted shares in India for startups, etc. But the extra benefit that you're getting is it applies to US shares also. 3 years is basically the general limit under the Income Tax Act. Since there's nothing specific said under the Income Tax Act for foreign ETFs, you follow the general rule, which is 3 years.
Got it. Yeah, absolutely. So guys, since US shares are considered as unlisted shares, वो 24 months के period में club हो गया, and 36 months is the general capital gains. And since ETFs are not mentioned anywhere or covered anywhere, we are assuming, or we are taking 36 months as the rightful period. Okay. Another thing, let's say, again, a question: if someone has existing US stocks, let's say on some other platform, and they also buy it on, let's say they have 10 Microsoft shares already, they buy on vested 20 shares of Microsoft, and they sell 15. So what should be the case here?
Okay, that's a very interesting question.
Yeah.
Now, this can be debated again and again, and you could go round and round in this, but I'll tell you how I would think about it. There's actually some circular under which says you follow it on a demat account basis. Now, that circular was issued for Indian shares, so you could make an argument that it doesn't apply overseas. But if I was to make the comparison and if I was to apply this circular to that, I would say you would follow a demat account basis, in which case you would first consider whatever shares you purchase in the vested account only, if you sold from the vested account.
Got it. And also just just a mention, guys, we would definitely not have access to your other accounts, right? So the entire reports would be prepared assuming that this is your only demat account. So it's easier that way. I won't say it's correct, but it's convenient. And again, many of these things are in the gray area, right? When it comes to these edge questions. So for now, I think this would help at least, going ahead with our tax reports. All right. The next question that I have, let me see. Can the date of, okay. So I think this is pertaining to the, mention that you said that entering the passport details or passport number helps. So what if someone doesn't have the passport number? Does PAN work?
Again, really edge case, and I wouldn't want to give a blanket answer for that. That's a call you would have to take. I would, if you ask me and I was in that situation, I would probably put the PAN in if they don't have a passport. But there's no provision on, there's nothing written in the rules on what you should do. So I would probably put the PAN in, but it wouldn't be the correct thing to do.
Got it. All right, thanks. Okay, so most of these are already answered. And let me pull up a couple of questions that I had actually.
Sure.
So a couple of rules around offsetting the taxes, right? Can we offset यहाँ का US capital gains with Indian capital losses, or Indian capital gains go with US losses? Some idea there.
Okay. So that is very clear. India does not differentiate between Indian capital gains, US capital gains. None of that differentiation happens. As once you've calculated the gains, they're gains.
Okay.
So you can set off your US loss versus Indian gain. You can set off your Indian loss versus Indian gains. The US losses versus Indian gains, whatever. Every permutation combination is possible. Only thing to remember is there are specific rules that short term can be set off only against short term. Long term can be set off only against long term. I'll have to quickly check for you, Kamlesh, if you can check.
The short-term losses could be set off against the short-term gains and the long-term gains. But for the long-term losses, it's strictly to the long-term gains.
Correct. Oh, government ka fayda, basically. That's the logic that I can think.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's how I remember it also.
Yeah.
Even I have to think about it sometimes.
True. Okay. So, guys, you can. The bottom line is, कोई भी capital gain है, कोई भी capital loss है, once you have defined it, you can set off considering the rules that we just mentioned. Okay. So one more thing, what is the proof regarding withholding taxes paid in the US that can be submitted to income tax department? So I can take at least this first part, and then I have a follow-up question for you guys. Sure. So the proof that we share is 1042S statement that's coming directly from our broker. Which is kind of, I would say, TDS certificate जैसे इंडिया में मिलता है, something to the same extent you would receive with all the details, कितना tax has been withheld, and that's something that you can serve as a document proof along with your ITR. Now the follow-up question is, I know many of our investors, clients would have bugged you with this. US follows calendar year, India follows financial year. What to do here?
Okay. Problem hai. There is no solution to it, and we've discussed this before. What I would do is, okay, you will get your 1042S for the calendar year 2020. First thing is submit that, and submit vested will give you a report. Submit that also. The income tax department usually trusts what a broker will give you. They might ask more questions, and you might have to give them a full working also separately prepared. But usually that should be enough information. Now, one thing we didn't cover in too much detail is if you have even 10 rupees of foreign tax credit, be prepared that your return is going to get transferred to the manual ward. Usually what happens is your ITR is processed at the centralized processing center, Bangalore, and it happens automatically. There's no human intervention. But if you take foreign tax credit, a human assessing officer will sit and verify, acha, you've given this document. Theek hai, how do I understand it? So it's a double-edged sword. One is there's human intervention. Second is there's human intervention, which is why you can explain to the person, theek hai, this is a practical problem, and this is the document I'm submitting against it. So that usually works out, and we've seen assessing officers are willing to accept information. So that is not as much of an issue.
Okay. So guys, please take a note of it. It should work because जब तक difference है calendar year and then financial year में can't help it. It is a problem, but that does not tell you this is something that can be done. So there's always a way around it, and we have the way. And since there would be a person involved, in case anything comes up as a query, you can always explain it to him because you will have all the documents, supporting documents as well. Okay. So here, can we avoid, again, I think follow-up question, can we avoid claiming foreign tax credit to simplify the tax return? What's your take?
My answer is yes.
Yes.
Please avoid taking foreign tax credit. If it's not a huge amount, I would say try to avoid taking foreign tax credit. Our discussions with clients are usually, what is a material amount? And probably makes sense because it's too much hassles and your regulatory cost is going to add up. So you might have to pay a CA to explain to the assessing officer ki kya ho raha hai. Why do you want to get any of it if it is just 500, 1000 rupees here or there? So then most times we tell clients don't take foreign tax credit. But sometimes if you're following say a dividend strategy, etc., then in that case there is no option, but you have to take a foreign tax credit.
Yeah. Again, these are, I won't say early days, but since this as an asset class hasn't grown to scale, so the rules and the awareness, I would say, is not as high as, let's say, Indian stocks, right? I think अगर आप 20 साल पहले कोई भी Indian stocks में invest करने का tax वाला issue पकड़ता तो I think ये same webinar हो रहा होता कि guys कैसे करना है. So don't worry about it. ऐसा नहीं है कि income tax guys would be behind you. अगर आप ऐसा कुछ करते हो, it's no more fancy, it's no more a very unique offering. I think this would go to almost all the retail investors very, very soon, and this would simplify, get even more simplified as we speak. So
I think one thing just people should remember is income tax is not this scary machine. Don't get scared if notice aata hai to bhi. It's not a huge deal. And most times we've seen they're okay with accepting information. They say, "ठीक है, we just want to check if what you've done is right." So they're humans; they will understand it. Obviously, Indian income tax department has a thoda problem ho sakta hai from time to time, depending on who it is. But it's not as much of a nightmare as it used to be. So abhi thoda sa don't get as scared if you get an income tax notice. It's most likely an automated notice. They flagged some tiny thing, jiske wajah se they just want more information.
Again, so we have no proof, guys, कि आप US में, because I've spoken with multiple experts and CAs, कि आप US में invest करोगे तो आपको notice आएगा, but it's more or less, अभी तो I think they've changed it to lottery and they've changed the systems dramatically as compared to a few years ago. So a lot of digitization, a lot of things are taking place in order, जिसका भी notice भेज भी रहे तो. Again, that's a separate topic altogether. Let's not digress. But you should not be afraid. That's it. You need to actually understand that. All right, moving on. I think we have time, right? Okay, we'll take 10 minutes more. We'll answer as much as we can.
Sure, yeah, let's.
And in case, guys, if you are not able to answer, don't feel bad. Please, you can write us, and we'll be more than happy. But I'm taking all the questions that would be more relevant for most of the participants, please. So one question: do we need to file anything in the US? Manan, Kamlesh, over to you.
No.
No.
Yes, so
No,
we don't
that's
need
it.
to
No.
correct. We don't need
You
to
don't
file
have.
anything. Even your dividend income that you receive, you don't need to file anything. You can claim directly without filing anything in the US. So यहाँ पर जो आप claim करते हो उसका, I think we have covered the entire process. What to do.
Correct.
So
Assuming you are non-resident, you have not stepped into the US, no filings in the US. If you are, say, a US citizen or you've spent some time in the US, those are edge cases, those are different cases. Then in that case, reach out to us. We'll help you out with what needs to be done. But otherwise, in 90%, 99% of the cases, nothing.
correct. Got it. Another couple of questions that I see on W8Ben form, right? So I can take this up, guys. So W8Ben form is a form that a non-resident in the US has to file with the regulator. So this is something that vested as an entity. Whenever you do your KYC, we file this form on your behalf to the regulator, stating that, भाई आप ये जो investor है, client है, he or she is a non-US resident, and इनका जो भी capital gains होगा वो उनके home country में होगा, which is India. So that's something that we will take care of it, guys. You don't need to worry. And that's one of the reasons also why we have an account opening fee in place. Considering abhi to khair, since we've turned 2 years, so we have waived it off for a limited period of time, a shameless plug-in. But you can. The reason we charge an account opening fee is because of one of these things. So glad to get this away, the W8Ben form ka query. One question: what is the period of reporting? For US tax or US investing as well? Is it financial year? Is it calendar year?
Okay, so like I said, foreign asset schedule that goes on a calendar year basis. All your income goes on a financial year basis. Only thing that goes on a calendar year basis is your FA schedule.
Got it. And guys, भले ही वो calendar year basis पे जा रहे हैं, but you have to file it as per Indian financial year. So doesn't mean कि आप January में बैठ के आप वो सिर्फ एक schedule file कर रहे हो. You have to do it when you are actually filing the entire,
Correct.
at the
It's
end
a part of your ITR basically. It's a additional schedule that you need to fill in your ITR only.
Got it. Okay. RSU we have covered. Also, guys, if you see or feel any question or any point you want to, please take it up. I have to browse, so I might take a second.
Sure. We'll also start going to the questions.
Equity REITs and mortgage REIT income are taxed. How are they taxed? I'm not sure how these would be considered as any different than ETFs. So I would at least personally club it under ETFs. Guys, your take?
So I wouldn't call them ETFs, obviously, but again, same taxation. You're right as far as tax is concerned, 36 months for capital gains. Dividend, again, like we discussed, dividend will be taxed at slab rate.
Okay. If someone's asking if I don't put any schedule by end of the calendar year or financial year, let's say I'll add that as well. Even if I invest in the US, I don't want to do all these things. I just, ignore that my paas koi US assets hai. Because there are a few customers who ask us, right? Ignore hi kar do to, what would be the problem? What is your take, guys?
See, I would not recommend ignoring things purely because income tax systems are getting stronger. Over the last 3, 4, 5 years, we've seen the systems get stronger. They've started sending out notices for a lot of things. So now they already have the information that you've remitted money outside India. They know for XYZ reason. Now, it is really difficult, and I would not recommend saying that I won't get caught, because at some point you might get caught, and for foreign assets, they can open up an assessment for a longer period of time, say 8 to 12 years also. I don't remember the exact period, but it's 8 or 10, 12 years later also, they can open up a scrutiny. So for a small amount, why would you want to get into that hassle? It's just one additional reporting you have to do. It's not really like you're paying too much tax on it or it's an additional tax you're paying. It's just one additional schedule you're filling. So usually I would say, please just do the reporting. It's not too much of a hassle.
Yeah.
And you might end up scratching your head when you have capital gains. So once you've sold the shares,
correct,
and if there is a scenario that where are these shares coming from? So that might be an issue in case if you have reporting in place wherein you filled all your schedules. So you have a trail in terms of that these were the holdings that I had earlier, and this is how I've done it. So You don't want a scenario wherein you sell in the second or the third year and you scratch your head, how do I report it? I haven't reported it earlier. What if there is a scrutiny?
True, I agree. So guys, CAs use the word scrutiny notice very, very casually, breezily, because they are literally working on this day in and day night. Again, I am just I have to inform this to everyone who is participating and attending and viewing this कि ऐसा नहीं होता है. As far as you follow the norms, कोई issue नहीं होगा. It's like similar to driving, right? If you're driving correctly, I don't think any policeman or any traffic or any camera would be able to catch you, right? If you have the documents, if you are driving it as per the regulations, कोई issue नहीं है. Similarly, this as well. If you are doing it correctly, if you are using all the reports that we have shared, if you are asking your expert, asking your CA to file it properly, there would not be any issue. So that's there. One question I quickly saw was which bank account to use. Again, I can pick this up. It depends, right? Which bank account you actually have. So, for example, you might have with HDFC, ICICI, Axis, you can use your existing bank account. There might be the charges might range from 1,000 rupees to 2,000 rupees on every fund transfer and some sort of FX markup fee. But at Vested, what we are doing is, as we speak, we do plan to launch another fund transfer solution, which is very, very seamless, very, very cost effective, and very much trackable. So as we speak, we're already in beta. We have opened up that for a few of our clients already, and we have seen tremendous outcome as well. So there is no fixed charges, zero fixed charges. आप कितनी बार भी करोगे आप ट्रांसफर कर सकते हो. The bank won't charge you anything. The FX markup is also around just 1%, and we are very transparent about it, and it can be done online right on the platform. So that's something that we are coming up with as a solution. Again, stay tuned. We will share these details to all the subscribers that we have at Vested. And I also saw that someone asking for the presentations, videos, slide. Guys, we will share it with you, and you would be able to view it in the future as well. Literally, we'll upload it on YouTube, and I think Manan's team, Kamlesh's team, as well as our team will share this the entire presentation recording with you. And for our future webinars, you just need to subscribe, at least on Vested. Guys, what about you? If they want to, subscribe to your future webinars, and how do you?
Contact details are on the slide, and if you go to our website and you scroll to the bottom, there is a newsletter subscription. So you can just put your email IDs in there, and you will be subscribed to all our future newsletters, webinars, everything.
Got it. Any question that you saw actually?
So let me just go through. There was something specific about a green card application started. So let me just quickly try to answer that. Again, it's a little bit of an edge case.
Exactly, but please.
Yes. Sure. So what I would recommend is, okay, the question disappeared.
Oh, sorry. I just moved it to answer. I thought answering. Okay. So it was, if they have submitted green card, but they haven't been in the US for for 5 years, how would they be treated? So here.
Okay. So if you submitted your green card application, but you've not received it yet, you're a non-resident alien. Simple. You continue being taxed the same way as every other resident Indian is being taxed. So you don't need to do your US reporting, except if you've been in the US and you have other US assets.
Exactly. Correct.
So I saw a lot of RSU questions. I think we've covered RSU already.
Correct. Will Vested provide us all the information required to fill Schedule A3, etc., etc.? Yes, we will. We have literally come up with all the set of documents, details that would be necessary for you to file your ITR. That's something that we will provide.
Sure. So I see a lot of edge questions, which I would recommend if you just want to reach out to us specifically.
Correct.
We don't charge for an initial query. So if it's something straightforward, which you can answer straight away, we'll give you an answer. So just feel free to reach out to us. If there's anything specific you need our advice with, obviously we can discuss the commercials for that as well.
Exactly. So guys, they're very talented, very skilled.
Thank you.
Yes, and actually, I've seen their social media posts as well, and they're trying to, make that taxation and all the rules and regulations very, very simple. So I think just one last question. I think I see that we should definitely take this up. Can Demat account be opened in the name of HUF or corporations? We currently only support individuals. So if you want to, if you are an individual, you want to open an account, you're more than welcome. But for other entities, and I think we're not yet ready to onboard HUFs and corporations. So any other parting thoughts before we end? Guys, sorry if you have not answered a few of your questions. Again, please reach out to us. We will be more than happy to answer those. But yeah, I think thank you so much, Manan and Kalpesh. Kamlesh. I have a friend Kalpesh. So Manan and Kamlesh for doing this. We are very, very grateful. And I think just very, very detailed. For any queries, any doubts, if our investors or clients have, they would reach out to you. And before we end, over to you guys as parting thoughts, please.
Perfect. I think, like we discussed during the session, don't be scared of tax. Don't let tax get in the middle of your investments. Tax is something that can be handled, and compliance shouldn't ever be a reason that you don't invest in something. So feel free, and like we've said multiple times during the session, Vested does make your life easier. All these reports are available, and it does make, as a CA, I can also say that it makes my life easier. So that is something you should definitely be considering. Our social media links are here. You can go ahead, follow us. Our personal links are also here, Kamlesh and mine. So you can always follow us, connect to us on LinkedIn. We're pretty chill about accepting connection requests, even if it's random people. And our DMs are open, and our email ID is also here. So just feel free to reach out. I know there's a lot of questions we might not have answered here. So I'll email us, we'll get back to you, and no issues from our end. Like I said, the initial reply is pretty much free from our end. So as long as we are not doing some specific research into it, we're not going to be charging you fees for that. Yes, that's it from my end. But thanks a lot for having us here. Also special thanks to Richa and Yashmi also for coordinating everything.
Yes, it was a pleasure, guys. So takeaways, don't worry about taxes, you've got it covered. Vested as well as your CA would be more than happy to assist you in your investing dreams, in your investing assets, in your portfolio creation. So don't worry about it. And if in case you want this to be covered again, we'll be more than happy to do this. Just write to us, and if you have any specific set of questions that we haven't answered, I will be more than happy to cover it in the next webinar, guys. So thank you everyone. Have a great weekend, and we'll be in touch.
Perfect. Yes. All right. Thanks everyone. Thanks for joining.
Thank you everyone. Thank you, Bharat.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
If you like our content, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to get regular updates.